Hello, my name is Sheena with Rise Wellness, and this is Activate Your Genius. Thank you so much for joining me this week as I contemplate Richard Rudd's book, The Gene Keys. This is Gene Key 42. This is the shadow of expectation. This is the gift of detachment. And this is the Siddhi, or the highest destiny path of celebration. So if you watched my video last week, we discussed the programming partner to this gene, which is the gene 32. So if you wish, you may want to go back and check out that gene either before or after this video and some point during your contemplation. So the 42nd shadow of expectation. So we all have this expectation. We all have this shadow, and this is the belief that our future holds a greater promise than the now. What that looks like is us believing that if we attain the perfect job, if we find the perfect mate, if we create the perfect family, if we find the perfect home, if we have achieved the perfect bank balance, that is when we will be happy. So we keep prolonging our happiness until we feel like we have met all of this criteria. But what inevitably happens is that we set the bar even higher, and as one bit of criteria comes in, we still postpone our happiness. So the main takeaway of this gene is to remember that happiness is happening in the here and now, here and now. So in the 30th gene key, we talked about the shadow of desire, and we talked about how it's such an important takeaway that these shadows always have these amazing teachable moments from them. There's nothing inherently bad about the shadows. The shadow with desire was our desire to go out and have these experiences. However ridiculous they might seem to be, we are evolving and growing through our life experiences. So the shadow of desire complements, even though it's not the programming partner, but works closely together with just this gene, because we have these desires, and then we have the 42nd shadow of expectation, and we have this expectation for how these desires will unfold, how our life will manifest. So the overwhelm or the dilemma of this shadow of expectation becomes disappointment. We'll learn through this passage how much we attach to the outcome of our circumstances. How adaptable are you? When things don't go your way, are you clinging and attaching to something in a way of suffering because things haven't manifested as you desired? Or are you completely adaptable? Are you so go with the flow that you're here doing the cha-cha, 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, going with the flow and accepting that whatever life is throwing at you, there's got to be a valuable lesson in it. So this 42nd shadow is really unique and special because this is the gene key that literally programs us to die. So since the moment we took form, we have been dying. So this shadow is all about our cycles, the natural life cycles. And this program to die exists as in every living cell as a built-in mechanism, because at some point we are designed for decay. So when we have this fear and anxiety about our time running out, it's actually coming from this 42nd gene, and that's because it's our neocortex perceiving that life is time flowing by and that we don't have an unending supply of time. So the perception of time and the response or the reaction to its passing is really rooted in this gene, and it's linked to our natural life cycles. So at some point in our lives, maybe in school, you may have learned that our body will be renewed entirely every 7 years. And the reason for this is because every renewable cell in our body completely refreshes and renews and is replaced every 7 years. So through this 42nd gene key, life ends with the gift of attachment and the Siddhi of celebration. This spiritual essence becomes detached from its form, just as us human beings must detach ourselves from those who have passed away. At the highest level, death is really a cause for celebration, and we'll see that as we begin to explore the highest frequencies of this gene. So all of our lives are programmed around expectations. So like all of its shadows, they're not bad. It's not a bad thing to have an expectation. But what this gene will teach us is how rooted we are in the outcome of those expectations. How much trust do we have in life? If our things are not going the way that we hoped that we would, are we riddled with anxiety? Are we completely overwhelmed and stressed about the future? Or are we able to surrender and trust with a love and inner knowing that whatever is happening for our greatest good? It's happening for us to experience something new. This desire of something new is all about experiencing these lives, these interesting things for our evolution. So once we come to embrace the gift of detachment, and we recognize our relationship to expectation, we can kind of surrender a bit more and hopefully go through life a little bit more effortlessly, to remember that we are all characters on this stage, on this play, in the story that we are creating. There's so many amazing parables that speak to this gene, and so many stories, and really throughout the gene keys there's a lot that will have a biblical reference to the Christ consciousness teachings, and there's one like this one that's really more about the Buddhist teachings. The Buddhist teachings is all about letting go. It's all about surrendering to the now moment. This gene is all about experiencing happiness right now in this moment that you are living and breathing in. So what we come to find out in life is it's usually our biggest disappointments that lead to our greatest blessings, our most enormous blessings, the ones we never even planned for ourselves. So because this programming partner is the shadow of failure, we can kind of see how our expectations can inevitably lead us to a disappointment, and it's our perception with disappointment that constitutes it as a failure a lot of the time. So if we go back to thinking in the duality of success and failure, we could actually say that we've failed simply by using that notion of thinking that way, because as soon as we create this idea of what success is, we're in the shadow of expectation on thinking that this should look a certain way. So the mind only sees what we program into it. So if you're co-creating your reality all the time with this anxiety or this stress about how the flow of events should happen around you, you're not giving yourself the natural ability, or you're not giving yourself enough trust that life is unfolding exactly as it should. A few weeks ago, I was referencing the After School YouTube series and the Ram Dass special, which was called Life is Perfect, or Everything is Perfect. It's a really special one, and it's walking the Tao, back to that Buddhist teaching of walking the middle path, being okay with this unfolding over here or this manifesting over here, not being attached to any particular outcome. So we come back to that walking the Tao, or that surrender to the expectations in this gene key passage. So if you are sitting here expecting something bad to happen all the time, then you're really not experiencing all the happiness and all the joy that you're here to experience. And if you're so attached to a certain particular experience of happiness and joy coming through, then you're sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting for it, that you're not really taking in all of the amazing experiences that are occurring right around you. Your expectation is literally taking you out of the present moment. This gene is all about staying in the here and now. In a repressive nature, this looks like grasping. And these are the people that have an inability to let things go. They don't want things to end. They're so deeply afraid of change that they want to cling to things so tight that they're afraid of people moving on from them. They're afraid of chapters closing. They don't want, they cling to even loss and grief because they're so afraid of the void, of the unknown. When you have a certain expectation or comfort around what things have looked like, you cling to them with this fear that you don't know what anything else looks like. When we don't allow things to die as they naturally are intended to do, we prevent life from renewing itself. And that takes away our life force. That takes away our healthy vitality and our energy. In a reactive nature, these people would be considered flaky. And they're so afraid of disappointment. Their expectations are so high and they're so unwilling to cave on them or invite in any expectation that they don't complete anything in life. They don't even get started because they're trying to avoid disappointment so much. They're afraid of making any real commitments in any certain directions. So they're moving through life kind of scattered and flaky without allowing the natural rhythms to complete naturally. You know, like I said, in the programming partner, we talked a lot about the natural rhythms of cycles. And what happens is if we end a cycle prematurely, then the universe is going to give us another experience for us to learn from that lesson. If we might have a similar suffering or play victim to a form of suffering when we cling to a cycle and we don't allow it to end as it should, as all the signs are there reading that it should come to an end. You know, this shadow, you know, is afraid of letting it die out. It's afraid of the end. So the dilemma on either way is getting stuck in old patterns by either clinging too long or not clinging long enough and detaching too quickly, not honoring the commitment. When we raise up that frequency, we come to the gift of detachment. And this is one of my favorite genes to have studied because I was able to see myself in so many places in my life and how it has unfolded in so many ways. So if you are fully detached, if you're living in this Buddhist spiritual way, this Tao, then you are feeling things more intensely. And the reason that you're able to feel them so intensely is because you invite all the feelings in without clinging to any particular outcome. You allow your expectation, whether it be positive or negative, to come through and not constrict the experience. You have expanded into the experience with this deep trust and surrender that whatever unfolds is exactly as it should be. Life is perfect, as the Ram Dass special says. So you can even experience the joy of disappointment when you are honoring this gift of detachment, because you are not clinging to a form of suffering, and instead you know that there is a valuable lesson. If something has to die or give or fall away, something greater is in its place, awaiting the space that you make for it to come. So much about this passage is also about making space. And the way that we make space is literally as simple as breathing. Let's do that for a minute here. Let's just take a couple deep breaths. I invite you to, if you wish, if you're in a place to do so. If you're driving, you might decide to rain check that as far as getting into a meditative place with it and softening your gaze or closing your eyes. But I invite you to, let's let in right now. Let's let in some space. Let's expand right now together. Okay, so I want you to take some deep, deep belly breaths coming in from the base of your spine, your root chakra, your sacral chakra. This gene is closely tied to our sacral chakra. That is our life force energy. So let's breathe down into that. You may wish to put your hand over your belly if you're not used to diaphragmatic breathing. You may also wish, if you are in a place to do so, to soften your gaze or close your eyes entirely. As you take a deep breath in, feel the air coming all the way deep into the base of your belly. Soften your brows, relax all the muscles of your face, soften your jaw, roll your shoulders back and down. And as you expand, as you breathe and you feel that puppy belly come out, think of all of your limitless possibilities. Think of your endless potential. Think of all of the space that you have to create so many amazing things. Whatever you desire, you can have when you create the space for it. And when you give in to living the life of non-attachment, letting things come and letting things go without a particular clinging to them manifesting in a certain way. As you exhale, I invite you to feel that breath coming up and out. Make sure those shoulders stay relaxed back and down. Make sure the muscles of your face stay loose. You may wish to crack your smile. You may wish to soften your gaze or reopen your eyes. Feel your belly coming in and coming out with each expansion and each contraction. If you're not regularly breathing all the way into the base of your belly, I invite you to do that. I invite that to be part of your activating your genius this week. It's just taking those deep belly breaths. Creating that space invites in this endless possibility. So this gift of detachment, it can't be forced. It comes when you're good and ready. Instead of forcing anything, you're yielding to everything. You're feeling absolutely everything. Oscar Wilde has a famous quote that says that he could resist anything but temptation. And this is the true essence of what detachment is. It's not to resist the temptation, but it's to dive into it and with vigor, whether it's an internalized experience or an outer manifestation. So just like with the shadow of desire, Richard Rudd's contemplation around it was give into it. What is it? What is the learning here? And that doesn't actually mean give into every single one of your temptations, but at least give into the contemplation behind it. If you are so set on something manifesting for you, can you look and think about what feelings would that evoke? Is there another way to manifest those feelings without giving in to anything that might be self-destructive or sabotaging to you or someone else? So there is some, I don't want to say any resistance to giving into the temptation, but what I invite you to do is dig deeper. Instead of giving into all the temptations, give into the contemplation behind the temptations. What's leading you in that direction? What is the feeling that you want to evoke? If you believe that you need X, Y, and Z to be happy, what is stopping you from feeling that happiness in the here and now? So detachment, like all of the gift states, it means that you've deeply surrendered in life. You have a love of the universe, you have a love for yourself, and you trust. You know that everything that comes is happening for your highest good and your greatest benefit. You let go of your expectations. And that is the true ending to this gene, is letting go of all of the expectations. And when you do, you come into this highest destiny path of this gene, which is the Siddhi of celebration. And what's so amazing about celebration is it's the transcendence of death. In so many of these higher destiny paths, we come to remember that we are immortal creatures. Here we have these genes that manifest these shadows and these fears within us about our decay, about our time running out, about our death, but it's an illusion. What we come to find out with this highest destiny path of celebration is that this is the state that goes beyond detachment. When the 42nd Siddhi explodes, and Richard Rudd says it will explode, the observer becomes the observed. The indwelling awareness merges back to its source, to pure consciousness. As we arrive into all of these highest destiny paths, these go beyond language. These are felt, these are experienced with light, with fragrance. It goes beyond words. And think about some of the amazing experiences that you have in life, the things that we celebrate. Our celebrations here in America are usually places where fireworks are going off. You know, think about that as the highest destiny path that we will inevitably experience. One day we will lose our physical form. We have to detach from the expectation that we will keep reincarnating form after form after form. We have to detach from our form. We have to make peace with death. We have to recognize that it is our pure consciousness that we came from that we will return back to. And while we were on this playground, while we have this physical form that manipulates matter, we have to celebrate it. We have to enjoy it. This means love deeper. You know, I love that song that's like, love as if you were dying, you know, and that is the Siddhi of this gene. It's love like there's no tomorrow. Be so invested in the here and now that you're so deeply surrendered that you are savoring each moment. You are seizing the day. Carpe diem. This is the motto of this gene, is seize the day, celebrate every moment. In our life, we have so many celebrations that celebrate the beginning of things, but we don't always take the time to celebrate the middle. You know, right now, today might be your birthday. And if it's not, today might be your unbirthday. And I invite you to celebrate that. I invite you to look back in this gene at everything that you've overcome, every obstacle that you didn't think that you would make it through, every time you cried yourself to sleep, every time your heart broke and you thought it was for the last time, every time you felt yourself constrict in your body and felt that shortness of breath and all your muscles contract and tighten, and this anxiety and this overwhelm came over you and you didn't know how you would get to the next moment. This is the moment that we come back and we breathe and we celebrate. You've made it so far, and this is the chance for you to go back and see how far you've come and relish in it and celebrate it, and know that you're not always going to be the star of the show. You are not always going to have the ability to hug your children and make love to your partner and smell the smell of your favorite flower and taste the sweet berries and all of the ways that our senses bring life to this joyful experience that we get to have. We're not always going to have that. So celebrate it right now. Celebrate the many ways that this universe has brought you into this now moment, to be watching this video, to be unlocking the keys to your vocation, to your life's work, to how you embody relationship, all of the teachings of the gene keys, whatever it is that has brought you to this video in this moment. Congratulate yourself for choosing shadow work or sacred play and choosing to contemplate death and life and what it's all for. Celebrate the fact that you are conscious enough to want to understand what happens next and how can you live your best now. This gene about detachment is such a beautiful journey because it invites you to just relax and have fun in this moment right now. Happiness is not on the other side of the paycheck. It's not on the other side of the relationship. It's happening right now, and it's happening for your best and greatest good. So celebration is a direct manifestation of the true awakening, the actual enlightenment. And what we come to learn is, even when all of our spiritual teachings will make us believe that we have reached these awakenings or experienced this enlightenment, what we come to find out in the true siddhis, once we have attained them, it's that this is a joke. This has always been a joke. This celebration is finally getting the punchline that, holy crap, here I was the co-creator of this reality. And think about how many years I created this victim story, and I put myself as this person who suffers. It's kind of like this joke. And we also see how we are really asleep, because we can't be half awake. So as awake as we think we are, we really have not achieved that true awakening until all of us manifest into this Siddhic form. So right now, this celebration, is it about knowing the utter helplessness that it is to be alive inside our human body and celebrating it anyways, because we're beyond helplessness. This is the second coming that Jesus talks about in the biblical parables. This is the rebirth. The celebration is the rebirth. One way that we think about this non-attachment is, I invite you maybe this week in your contemplation, or even just as a meditative exercise, is to consider yourself standing by a river, and instead of looking directly at the river, look at the river from your peripheral. And as you meditatively gaze in the direction of that river, you will notice that you don't see whether the river is coming or it's going. And in that moment, it doesn't matter. None of it matters. It's moving. And that is what you are. And that's what's happening now in your body, is you've been dying since the moment you took this physical form. Every single one of your cells is continuing to decay, to begin decaying. You are constantly being rebirthed. You are constantly starting anew. So some of us will give ourselves these expectations that every Monday is the beginning of a new week and we should start at X, Y, and Z. Or the beginning of the year, we should have these resolutions and it should look like X, Y, and Z. Or whatever it is, we have all these expectations of this newness and where we have to start this freshness. But this gene reminds us that we got to stop postponing everything. We have to be in the here and now, and we have to experience life and celebrate life as it's happening all around us. So for activating your genius, I just really invite you to think about the last time that you had an expectation that was unmet. I invite you to think about your relationship to disappointment. I invite you to think about how attached you are to outcomes. Are you clinging to things far beyond the cycle has ended? Or are you so afraid of commitment and so afraid of being disappointed that you don't start anything? Are you familiar with any of the Buddhist teachings? Is understanding the middle path or the gift of non-attachment or detachment, is that a new concept to you? And if it is, it's one that I really invite you to do some more reading on, because it's so beautiful and it's something that our Western world has not fully grasped. I find that it's so interesting how, like in Indian cultures, they don't start practicing yoga until they're a senior citizen. And the reason that they start practicing yoga at that time is because it's their dress rehearsal for death. It's how they embrace being within their body. And at the end of most yoga sequences, you come into Shavasana, which is corpse pose. You are practicing death. You are beginning a relationship with death that makes it more of an invitation, that allows more grace and ease and flow into that natural process that we're all going to undergo, rather than making it this thing that we're afraid of. I think in Western culture, we have so much fear around death. We see it with these beauty products that are trying to keep us looking young, as though it's a bad thing for us to age. You see it in the way that we mourn loss and we cling to death and we fear change. It's because our Western traditions haven't memorialized death in the way that maybe we could. I find that this teaching is coming to me at a really special time, because I would say that a huge beginning of my process and my shift into spirituality came through the passing of my father. And that was almost 7 years ago to the day that I'm sharing this information. And it's so special to me to know what his death catapulted me into. I mourned his loss. I was that person that clung to my grief. I attached to my suffering. I played victim to that person who was mourning, because I feared the change. I didn't know what my life would look like without that parent that I had a really special and important relationship to. And now, having him in my life in so many different powerful ways is something I never could have perceived by myself. And it only happened through my relationship to non-attachment, through my relationship to living my life in a celebratory manner. And that's what I invite for you this week, is celebrating your life, looking back at everything that you've overcome and giving yourself a pat on the back, giving yourself a big old hug. If you haven't had a hug in a while, make sure you do that from time to time. Maybe it's just placing your hand on your heart. You'll get the same effect. But just honoring your story. You know, at the end of the day, we are going to be that firework. We are going to be that atomic blast in the sky, that shooting star. And whether that meteor is coming or going, it doesn't really matter. But while we are in this physical form, experiencing this here and now, use it to your advantage. Celebrate this life. Create the relationships. Cultivate the relationships and the communities. Nourish your body, nourish the earth. Today is Earth Day, and it's such a beautiful day to celebrate Mother Gaia for all that she gives to us. She's constantly teaching us about cycles and how natural and important they are to let the dead things go so that we can rebirth all the things awaiting for us and making the space to do so. So this gene is just a really fun one. It's a playful one. I want it to be playful today. Hair today, gone tomorrow. And I just invite you to have fun this week. I'm attending a birthday celebration tomorrow. And what a perfect culmination to the end of this magical week that's been so much about, for me, honestly, it's been a lot about silence. It's been about feeling things and feeling them so deeply that I didn't want to give language to them. And, you know, enjoying the sunrise and the sunset and, you know, timing with my animals and experiencing life as it unfolds without being so attached to the outcome. And every time I surrender and I have a deeper sense of trust, new amazing things keep coming my way. This week for me is the end of more cycles. It's the end of more chapters. And at one point in my life, I might be really sad about those things coming to an end because they brought me a lot of joy and peace. And now as I am watching them go, I'm so excited for all the space that is opening up, and I cannot wait to see what is on the other side of that. Thank you, as always, so much for being here. I love you so much, and I wish for you so much celebration in all the days and weeks and months and years to come. You only get one of these lives, so celebrate it, enjoy it, relish in it. I love you. Namaste.